I'm Kathy with a C.
And I'm Kathy with a K.
And this is Killer Destinations.
Love and hope turned to death and destruction for one young couple in small-town Illinois. When all leads go cold, who did they turn to for help?
Today's destination is Wood River, Illinois. The city, which is just 15 miles upstream of St. Louis, Missouri, was founded in 1907, and today 10,000 residents call it home. Located in Madison County, Wood River lies on the Mississippi River near the confluence of the Wood and Missouri rivers. It was from this site that Lewis and Clark began their journey to the Pacific Northwest in 1804. As a result, Wood River is the beginning of the historic Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail that ends at the mouth of the Columbia River near Astoria, Oregon. Just over a decade after its founding, the city was named the nation's fastest-growing community, earning the title of Miracle City due to its massive growth resulting from a Standard Oil refinery being built there. Today, Wood River remains a working-class city best known for its industrial past, affordable living, and a suburban feel. It also boasts a large collection of historic Sears, Roebuck & Company catalog homes. But in 1978, one young couple who were just starting their future together moved into a quaint little bungalow in a family-friendly neighborhood. But a neighborly knock at the door destroyed their dreams forever.
Mark Fair was annoyed. He'd been working hard all day at his construction job, and after work, he and his friend Tom went to Mark's house just to relax with a cold beer. Mark and his girlfriend Karla Brown had just moved into a small house together. And now remember, Kath, this is 1978, so in small-town America, it was scandalicious.
Yes, it was.
Karla had planned to spend the day unpacking and putting the house together. So when Mark got home and found the front door unlocked, he was annoyed because he'd told Karla to make sure the door was always locked behind her. But he was even more frustrated when he saw that she hadn't finished unpacking and the house was still a mess because Karla had taken the day off work so she could get things finished. And it appeared that Karla wasn't even home. He called out to his girlfriend several times, and she never responded. But then, Mark noticed that the record player was on, and it was obvious the entire record had been played, but Karla had never lifted the needle after the record ended. And just like that, Mark's irritation turned to concern. The house they moved into, Kath, was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, little bungalow, so they checked the upstairs of the house quickly, but they didn't find Karla. So they headed down to the basement. From the staircase, Mark could see seat cushions on the couch had been overturned, and as he walked further into the room, he could see the TV stand had been knocked over. Then his friend Tom pointed out what looked like blood on the carpet. The men followed the blood trail deeper into the basement toward a utility room, and that's where they found a devastatingly gruesome sight. Karla's body was on the floor, bent at the waist, with her hands tied behind her back, and her head was submerged in a metal tub that had been filled with water. Mark freaked out at what he saw, and so he immediately lifted Karla's body out of the tub and laid her on the floor, and Mark and Tom took turns performing CPR on her. But soon, they realized it was futile.
Karla Brown was just 22 years old and finishing up her studies at Southern Illinois University, and she was waitressing at IHOP. She was described as beautiful. Kath, you've seen pictures of her, so you know.
Oh, yeah.
She had this perfect blonde, Farrah Fawcett, feathered hair.
People would have been so envious of that.
Oh, totally. Like it was perfect.
Yeah.
And she had this big, beautiful, bright smile. And of course, in high school, she was one of the popular kids at school. Karla was a cheerleader, and she participated in a million clubs like pep club, drama club, gymnastics, chorus, all this kind of stuff. And she was also a petite petunia. She was just 4'11" and 100 pounds.
So like you.
Exactly. We have the similar frame. It's crazy. My hair's not feathered, but...
But I bet it would look good if it was. It's also not blonde.
Exactly.
But maybe there's a change.
But Karla's life hadn't always been easy. Her father was in the military and died young in an accident. And her mother remarried several times, and one of her stepfathers had treated Karla and her sisters very, very badly. And Kath, some friends were so uncomfortable with her stepfather that they didn't want to spend the night at her house or even go to her house after school. And then one friend accused him of making sexual advances during a sleepover.
And this is the 70s, which I hate to say it quite like that, but how bad was it that she actually told someone that?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Okay, so really quickly though, this does remind me of a sleepover. I think I was in 3rd grade. It's all a little fuzzy during those years. Right. But, I mean, honestly, it is. But,
Kathy was drinking back then.
Well, my dad had died.
She always has to pull that card with me.
But that's why I think it was in 3rd grade. Like, I think my mom was trying to farm us out or just have us get on with normal life.
Yeah.
So there's this girl, Karen, who I went to school with, and I only knew her mom. I didn't know her dad, but I went over there to spend the night, and we were in the living room in sleeping bags, watching TV.
Was it just the two of you, or was it a sleepover?
It was a sleepover.
With a bunch of kids?
No. It was just the two of us.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't like a big party. It was just,
right.
One friend. I only had one friend. But don't laugh at me. It's true.
Dude, I only had one friend until 2nd grade.
Okay, but this is 3rd grade. I really should have been more popular at this point. But anyway, it was also strange because Karen and I weren't super close. So that's why I wonder if mom was trying to farm us out a little bit, get us back into a normal rhythm. Anyway, we're at Karen's house. We're in the living room watching TV, probably eating crap in sleeping bags. And her father walks in. Okay. The first thing I saw were his feet. And he was wearing those Saturday Night Fever, Clompo shoes.
Totally.
Which was weird.
Like high heel men's shoes.
Like high heeled men's loafers.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I was my eyes were going up and it looked like a Speedo. In my mind, I made it a Speedo. I think he was wearing bikini underwear. And at that point, in my mind, I was totally
nothing else?
I don't think so.
Did you see bare legs?
I saw bare legs and I stopped at the Speedos, but there was definitely my skin.
Oh
above
my
that.
God. He only had bikini underwear on or whatever.
But Karen didn't seem fazed by it. So I'm guessing maybe that was normal.
What did he say? Do you remember?
God, no. I
Okay.
totally took a dive into the sleeping bag so I didn't have to see. It was totally if he can't see me, I'm not here.
Right.
Totally.
I don't have to look at the bikinis.
No, exactly.
And the high-heeled shoes.
But it wasn't even that. It was I just knew that was wrong.
Right.
I mean, I'm surprised I wasn't molested. I mean, I hate to say it.
No, totally.
But you know what I mean? He had no business dressing for his daughter like that.
No business.
So anyways, but that's what this reminded me of. And I went home and I told my mom, and I honestly don't remember what she said, but it that scarred me for a little bit.
Yeah.
And honestly,
I would be scarred too.
But I grew up being afraid of men because my sister broke my arm when I was 4 and I had to go to the doctor. I had to get my arm set and whatnot. She pushed me off our trapeze set.
Swing set.
It wasn't a swing set. It was we had our trapeze.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fancy.
I know.
We just had basic swing set.
I know. That wasn't enough for us.
We had a rusty, rickety swing set.
We had this trapeze. We both wanted to get on it. We got on it from different sides, trying to get to it. She was always 12 feet taller than I was. And she got there first and then pushed me off. And I hit the ground and I broke both bones of my wrist. And I was a little 4-year-old because I still remember Grandma trying to make me feel better till Mom and Dad got home. But I became afraid of men because what do? They give you shots.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. And so my dad's best friend was at that time, he was a major in the Marine Corps. And I was friends with his younger daughter. And I would go over to the house and I would knock on their door and ask if the major was there. And if he was, I would just turn around and run back home. And if he wasn't, I would walk in. So this man
that's awesome.
Did not help with that issue.
Yeah, the man in the Speedos and the high-heeled shoes with his weird sexual fetish, whatever.
Exactly. So anyways, I'm not saying that's what happened with this stepdad, but it was inappropriate behavior for such young children.
Well, if it gives you the heebie-jeebies, you just follow your instincts. The guy's a creepo.
Totally. I said, I made myself invisible.
Right. Head going under the sleeping bag, automatically invisible.
Exactly. You can't see me. I'm not here.
So back to Karla not having a very easy life. At the age of 17 in 1973, she started dating Mark. This is actually where her life gets better. That was not a good transition.
That really wasn't.
And Mark was older than her.
Now, we never were able to actually find his date of birth, and none of the newspapers, and there weren't a whole lot, but the newspapers did not list his age ever. Everything just said quite a few years older.
Right.
So
they listed his home address and his social security number.
Exactly.
But not his age.
Birth date was excluded.
Yeah.
But like I said, everything said he was quite a few years older. So we're going to estimate, because we like to do this, 5.
Yeah, we're estimating 5 years. So they start dating when Karla was 17. And then in 1978, when she was 22, Mark had already served a stint in the military and was working as a construction apprentice. So Karla wanted to get married desperately. Mark was reluctant to settle down. He said he wasn't ready, but I am going to show you how committed I am to you, and we're going to move in.
So after Mark's friend Tom calls police, Wood River police rushed to the scene, and in everything I read, Mark was described as being hysterical and unable to calm down. When police entered the basement, there was actually blood everywhere. Now, this isn't the trail that the boys followed. This was actually in the utility room where they found Karla. But it also looked like the killer or killers had tried to clean up the scene. So, Kath, there was blood that was splattered on the basement floor, on the walls. There was a bloodied couch cushion that was heavily saturated with water. So detectives believed someone had tried to clean up after themselves. As we had said earlier, Karla's hands were tied behind her back, but Kath, they were actually tied with a white extension cord rather than a rope. And 2 of Mark's socks were tied around her neck so tightly that they had to be cut off. Karla was wearing a heavy sweater that she normally wore only in the winter, and she was naked from the waist down. Of course, there was the assumption that she had been raped, or at least assaulted, but nothing contained in court records actually spoke to that point, other than this, where it said that she was found naked from the waist down. Now, during her autopsy, the medical examiner determined that Karla had suffered a fractured jaw, bruising, and severe scraping around her throat that was believed to be consistent with strangulation. She also had lacerations on her forehead, nose, and chin that were caused by a blunt object. Her cause of death was ruled as strangulation, and the time of death was given at approximately 11:45 a.m. When Wood River Police Detective Charles Naun arrived at the scene, he actually, Kathy, noticed 2 men standing at the house next door on the porch watching everything that was going on. So the first thing he did when the crime scene was contained is he toddled on over to the house and asked them what was going on. So the 2 men were Paul Main, who lived in the house, and his friend, John Pranty. When asked if they were home that day, so the day that Karla was murdered, they said yes. They said to detectives, "We've been sitting on this porch, drinking and maybe sparking up a couple times since early this afternoon." But they had no idea that anything had happened at their neighbor's house until police cars arrived. And Kath, after the news broke of Karla's murder, a woman reached out to police and told them that on the day that Karla was murdered, this woman just happened to be driving by Mark and Karla's house with her young grandson in the car. Apparently, the woman and her family had only moved out of Karla and Mark's house 9 months prior. So as the grandma was driving by, taking her grandson to the dentist, she said to her grandson, "Hey, this was the house we just lived in. Let's pull in and take a look." So it was a small bungalow, as we said. It was set up front, closer to the sidewalk, so very small front lawn. And it was a driveway to the side that was long, went past the house because the garage was in the back. So she pulled into the driveway so they could take a quick look. And as they pulled in, and they just stayed in the part of the driveway that was close to the sidewalk, she said that she saw a young woman matching Karla's description and another man having what she thought looked like a heated argument. But she only got a quick look. She only saw the profile of the man and said, he was fairly large, which I'm not sure for 1978 if that means what, like 165?
Right, exactly.
And he had long hair and a beard. Grandma told police that she had stopped at that house at about 10:45 a.m. And Kathy, that turned out to be the last time that anyone saw Karla alive.
I cannot believe that Grandma drove and parked at the apron of their driveway, it sounds like.
Right.
On the day she was murdered and was the last person to see her alive.
How crazy is that?
How crazy is that?
Grandma sees Karla about 10:45. And so in talking to some of Karla and Mark's relatives and friends, they found out that sometime between 10 and 11 a.m., Karla had spoken with Mark's mother on the phone, and the conversation ended when Karla told Mark's mom, "I gotta go, somebody's knocking at the door." Now, at approximately 11 a.m., so this is 15 minutes after Grandma saw her when she was parked in the apron of the driveway, Karla's friend Debbie stopped by the house to visit, but Karla didn't answer when she knocked at the front or the back door. And then just a couple of hours later, Debbie and two friends called Karla, but Karla never answered the phone.
Karla's boyfriend Mark was a primary suspect, but police were able to quickly rule him out. He'd spent the day at the job site more than 20 miles away, and coworkers and management confirmed that he'd never left. After getting very few leads from neighbors, police started looking at people in town, and the first person they spoke with was what newspapers called a local tough.
I like that description.
Exactly, a local tough named Jack. And Jack knew Karla well, and it was kind of very well known in town that Jack liked Karla and made numerous advances toward her, but she always politely declined. Kath, even Karla's closest friends thought Jack was the most likely perpetrator. So local tough was probably accurate.
Exactly.
So it turns out Jack had a few incidents of violence with women, but he was willing to come into the police station where he passed a polygraph. Now, they also looked at Karla's former stepfather, Joe, and he was well known to police as well. He was angry and described as skeevy.
That was actually my description.
I see skeevy in the notes. Anyway, he did not treat women well, but again, police were able to rule him out. He had an alibi. So detectives continued to be interested in Paul Main, the next door neighbor, and his friend John Pranty, who were drinking and smoking doobies on the porch next door. Police were suspicious because even though Paul and John said they were on the porch after the time Karla was murdered, the house was only a few feet from hers. So there's no way they wouldn't have seen or heard something that happened there. Both men were asked to take a polygraph and both agreed. John Pranty passed, and Paul Main was so upset and so rattled during his polygraph that the examiner could not determine whether or not he was being truthful. So his polygraph was inconclusive.
And Kath, I heard they actually called in a different examiner just to look at the results.
Yes.
And that guy was like, what the what?
Yeah, we don't know what's happening here.
Exactly. I think he might have had a stroke while he was doing this because none of this makes sense.
Exactly. And if you heard the last episode, you know how I feel about polygraphs. Or being polygraphed.
Or being personally polygraphed.
Right. It's scary. That's probably what mine was like.
Oh, probably not.
It was They needed somebody to work with homeless people. So they're like, we don't care. We have no other candidates. Take that girl.
You don't even have to pass. We just need to do it. We're checking a box.
We just need, exactly.
So here we are, just 2 weeks after Karla Brown's murder, and a bombshell hit the newspapers. The police chief of Wood River resigned. Kath, it was revealed that this small town of Wood River had a serial rapist in their midst, and the police chief had been hiding it from everyone. Beginning in April of 1977, so this is just 14 months before Karla was killed, Wood River began experiencing a number of break-ins and attempted rapes and rapes of young women who were at their home alone. Kath, there were as many as 14 attacks.
This is crazy. How is this not in the newspapers?
Well, remember, it's also a small town, for one thing.
What do you think the population was at this time?
It was about 13,000.
A town of 13,000, 14 rapes is a ton.
I agree, but it's still a small enough town that you only have one police chief who's going to rule the town.
Yeah, but...
Or at least his police department. But here's what he said. People went to him and they're like, dude, I'm paraphrasing.
No, really? This isn't a direct quote?
This once it's not. Most of the time it is. But they were like, dude, like, why haven't you said anything? Why have you been hiding this? And he said, I'm not hiding this from people. What I'm trying to do is protect these young women who were attacked and their reputations. I didn't want them embarrassed any further based on what had happened to them.
That is nuts.
It is nuts. And then the reason this all came spilling out is because shortly after Karla was murdered, a man was arrested for breaking into a young woman's house and trying to rape her. And so they were all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, this guy did it. This is what happened to Karla. And he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, I committed these rapes. And well, some of them. You can't pin them all on me. But I absolutely am not a murderer. I'm offended that you would think that I'm a murderer. I just rape and attack women who are in their homes alone.
Right. I'm a burglar and I'm a rapist, but I stopped there.
Exactly. Do not make me sound like I'm a bad guy.
Exactly.
So that's why it came out. And then, when they start looking on the books and they're like, rape, attempted rape, break-in, rape, guess who covered it up? It was the police chief.
That is so unbelievable to me.
Well, and imagine the betrayal the people in this town felt.
But part of me wonders, like, did he just like keep this on the down low because he had no clue as to how to solve it? I mean, I have no idea.
I don't either. And maybe,
I mean, I have no idea how many detectives were working for Wood River at the time. But...
And honestly, maybe the fact is that in his mind, I mean, if this is the 70s and he's police chief, he was born at least in the 40s, maybe he really just wanted to protect their reputation in town and didn't want people talking behind their backs or whatnot about what happened.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
I feel like it was a cover up of some type of inept.
And that's honestly where you normally go. So I'm just trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But the fact is that this did come out. He did resign, and they had nothing connecting Karla Brown to this accused rapist. But here's what's interesting. Rapist Tony, as we will now call him, was of course hauled into jail. And a short time later, 2 of his cellies in county lockup went to the police and they're like, dude, he confessed to killing Karla. He's the murderer. He told us. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We can close the case. What did he tell you? And so they told him all the stuff they knew and they were like, yay! Again, paraphrasing. But then as the detectives started going through the report the officers had taken, they were like, yeah, most of this isn't correct. And what is correct was actually reported in the newspapers. So shockingly, these cellies were lying. I know!
Oh, okay.
So now they've got to go back and actually find Karla Brown's killer.
So according to court records, in 1980, this is 2 years after Karla Brown was murdered, investigators sent photos of the crime scene to a forensic dentist named Dr. Homer Campbell. Now, he also happened to be an expert in image enhancement. And they reached out to him and said, hey, maybe your new technology could help in the investigation. So, Kath, what I read about this was that he would take photographs, and I'm going to call it increased pixelation, because that's what we call it today. But he would create what almost looked like a 3D image from a photograph. When he did so, he told police, hey, by the way, your victim has bite marks on her. I believe she had one on her neck and one on her collarbone. And he was able to identify them with this enhanced imaging, and the police couldn't recognize that previously. And I also read that Karla had been beaten on the face and head with an object, but they couldn't figure out what it was. So again, with this enhanced imaging, he tells them, hey, you have this little TV stand in the background there, and she was hit with the edge of it. The edge of that TV stand matches up with
all these deep lacerations in her forehead and chin and all that.
Exactly.
That the autopsy found.
Exactly. And so now detectives are like, oh, wow. Okay, so this was part of what killed her. We don't know for sure necessarily, but we do know that she has bite marks. So now we have some new evidence to pursue. Unfortunately, the case remains stalled for another 2 years. This evidence went nowhere because they couldn't find suspects. That was when Don Weber, who'd been a prosecutor at the time Karla was killed, was selected as the state's attorney for Madison County. And this was the county in which Wood River is located. So one of the first things he does is he establishes a task force, so local, regional, state officials, to look into Karla's murder. Now, here's what's cool. One of the primary investigators on the task force happens to attend a presentation given by an FBI agent named John Douglas, who at the time was developing the psychological profiling abilities for the FBI.
And he's the one behind Mindhunter. If you've ever seen that TV show,
exactly,
which is awesome and horrifying at the same time.
Right.
He's the one behind that.
Yes. And so, exactly. So he's, he and a couple other people started the behavioral sciences unit. It wasn't a behavioral sciences unit?
That's what it started as.
Yeah, of the FBI.
And then it became Criminal Minds.
So anyway, so this task force member reaches out and Agent John Douglas goes, sure, I'll take a look at Karla Brown's case to see if there's anything I could offer. He was really looking at it to see if the initial investigators missed anything. Is there anything I could offer them? Let's see what these have to say. So the first thing he did was look at the crime scene photos, and he asked the detective one question. Was Karla feisty or was she docile? And so he was told Karla was feisty. The autopsy results showed that Karla had put up a huge struggle during the attack. Despite her size, she was feisty.
You'd almost have to be at that size.
Yeah, that's a really good point. My sister-in-law is feisty.
Well, you are too, and you're that size.
That's right. But
actually, your sister-in-law is that size.
I know, exactly. Anyway, so Agent Douglas spent some more time looking at the crime scene photos, reports by the investigators, and then he presented to them what he believed was a profile of the killer. And according to Agent Douglas, and I'm going to read this, the killer was a white male between the ages of 25 and 30, visiting or living within one or two houses of Karla Brown's house.
Which is crazy.
I know. He was or had served in the Navy. He had some kind of electrical practical experience. He was a loser with women. He'd probably stayed around the area for about a month before leaving the area, and he drove a beat-up car that was probably red or orange. And it was probably a Volkswagen.
Now, some of this I understood, and it was explained a little bit, like the having practical electrical experience and being a Navy, that was based on the cords that Karla was tied with. So most people, if they're doing some sort of attack, they're not going to mess with electricity, right? They're going to find ropes or sheets or things like that. And not only did he cut electrical cords from lamps to use to tie her up, it was also tied in a knot that was used in the Navy. It was a perfect knot taught in basic training.
Right. And you could see the guy being a loser with women because he's going after the pretty girl.
The one who wouldn't pay attention to him in real life.
Yeah, but it is so crazy how he says...
Yeah, the Volkswagen?
The Volkswagen, the color of the car, and and living within one or two houses of Karla Brown's, staying for a month and then leaving.
Okay, but I still think the Volkswagen was different. Like, to me, everything else, like, whatever.
Although those were very prolific cars in the 70s.
Okay, it's a good point.
But still... Anyway, so Agent Douglas told the state's attorney Weber that they needed to hype the investigation. So he was like, you got to put it in the media. The killer is complacent because he thought he got away with it. You got to light a fire under his ass. So you got to make him nervous. Put this out there. And this is crazy. The agent said, look, if you do this right, this killer is eventually going to contact you because he's going to be obsessed with knowing what's going on in the investigation, especially if you throw it out there that there might be new information. Agent Douglas said, by the way, when the killer calls you, he's going to try to disguise his involvement. And he's going to tell you something like this. Hey, I'm a witness, but I don't want to be a suspect.
Armed with this knowledge, State's Attorney Weber got a court order to exhume Karla's body in order to conduct a second autopsy and determine if there were bite marks on her neck, like the forensic dentist asserted. Now, Kathy, even though it was a court order that was required to exhume Karla's body and nothing more, State's Attorney Weber actually went to her family and said, are you all right if we do this? Because I have to imagine, obviously, that's incredibly traumatizing.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess her family got together and Karla's mom said, is this something that we're all comfortable doing? And immediately came to the consensus that we have to do everything we can to find Karla's killer. So they gave Weber their blessing. Karla's body was exhumed, Kath, almost 4 years after she was murdered. A second autopsy was performed by Dr. Mary Case. Now, Dr. Case's findings largely confirmed those of the first autopsy, but unlike the first doctor who did the autopsy, Dr. Case actually opined that drowning was Karla's cause of death, not strangulation. This didn't appear to have any sort of impact on the case itself, but I just thought that was an interesting change that came from this.
So, Kath, was there any explanation as to how you get any new findings after 4 years in the grave?
Apparently, there were a couple things at play that worked in their favor. One of them was, as we all know, caskets can be porous. They stay in the ground long enough, water gets in, that kind of thing. So when they unearthed the casket and they opened it, there was a hissing sound that came out, which was apparently a good thing because it meant air had been trapped in there all this time and it hadn't leached out into the soil. So everything was very well preserved. And she had been embalmed, so everything on her skin was still well preserved. And I guess with time, for some reason, the injuries show more. And I know there's a logical reason for that. And I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. So if you're listening and you know,
keep it to yourself. I don't want to know. I don't care.
Let Kathy with a C know. She cares deeply. Now, following Agent Douglas's analysis, of course, that the killer had been living or visiting within one or two houses from Karla's house, the task force decided it was time to revisit next-door neighbor Paul Main and his buddy John Pranty. So they brought Paul into the police station first. Now, remember, he never passed or failed the initial polygraph, But when they spoke with Paul now 4 years later, he was absolutely adamant that he had not killed Karla. That had never changed. But he was able to clear up how he and John Prantty met Karla. Now, we know Paul lived next door to Mark and Karla, but Mark and Karla had only moved in the day before. So on the day before, this was a Saturday, Paul and John Prantty and another friend of theirs named John Scroggins were sitting on the porch. Apparently, this is all they do. And they noticed that Mark and Karla were moving in. And Mark and Karla had a bunch of friends with them because that's what you do when you're in your early 20s. You have all your friends break their backs to help you and you pay them back with pizza.
Exactly. And then they paint your house.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I totally missed out on that one. So the three of them were looking over at this moving party, and John Scroggins recognized Karla. They had actually gone to school together. So the three of them get up, toddle on up to Mark and Karla's house, and John Scroggins went up to Karla and he was like, "Hey, good to see you. Are you moving in? What's going on?" And introduced Paul Main, the next door neighbor, and his friend John Prantty, who apparently lived on his porch,
right,
to their new next door neighbors. Chat, just a few minutes. The two Johns and Paul toddle on back to Paul's house. And as they're sitting on the porch for the rest of the day, they watched everything that was going on over at Mark and Karla's house. So they saw everyone moving in, everything getting taken care of, all the boxes done. And then Mark and Karla bought pizza and beer for everybody. And so they watched through the windows in Karla and Mark's house, because they're not on the porch, as they celebrate Mark and Karla's new house. Now remember, Paul's telling this to detectives while he's in the station. While they're talking to Paul, State's Attorney Weber, who had been watching the interview, gets told that there's a phone call for you. So the state's attorney left the interview room to take the call. And when he picked up the phone, the person on the other end was John Prantty. And he said to State's Attorney Weber, "Hey, I know you're still looking into the case. Do you have something in mind for this crime?" And the state's attorney was like, "Yeah, I mean, we're still interviewing people. This is still an active case. We're certainly not letting it go. You know, we have to investigate all the leads." And so Prantty then says to him, "Okay, look, I have to confess, I was actually a witness to this, but I don't want to be considered a suspect." Boom.
Boom.
Thank you, Agent Douglas.
Exactly.
It just confirmed everything that Agent Douglas said was going to happen. And then the state's attorney says to his investigators, "Hey, now that Prantty has said this magic sentence that FBI agent Douglas said was going to be said, I need you guys to go investigate him more. Let's find out more about John Prantty and see if he kind of aligns with this profile that we've been given." So, of course, the easiest thing to do and the first thing they do is they look at Prantty's car, right? Remember, beat up old car, red or orange, probably a Volkswagen. At the time of the murder, John Prantty was driving a beat up red Volkswagen Squareback.
That's crazy.
So here's my new theory. Agent Douglas is the most prolific serial killer in the United States. And he's framing everyone with what he's saying.
Exactly. This FBI profiler is the killer.
And framing others for his actions because they don't think he's the killer. He's just this prolific prognosticator of the people responsible.
That reminds me of a book where a fire captain, I want to say, was actually a fire starter, and it was based on a true story. It was, who wrote about it?
I mean, it happens sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like it's a Michael Connolly book or a Joseph Wambaugh book, but it's called Firestarter. It was a great book. But yeah, John Douglas, serial killer.
I know, prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong, exactly.
Where were you when these happened? Right. I mean, honestly, though, like, it's a little scary how close he was to all of this.
It is incredible.
I mean, and like I said, some of it makes sense, like the electrical component and the Navy component.
Right.
One or two houses away is a little weird, too. But I think it's because he saw them on the porch that day. And he's like, I can blame those guys.
Exactly. I honestly think every true crime podcaster thinks they could be an FBI profiler. I absolutely 100% think I could.
I agree.
Show me some photos and I'll tell you some shit.
Exactly. And if I'm wrong, don't blame me.
Right. Because I really am not qualified.
It's not my fault. Criminal minds train me incorrectly. Right. I'm not properly trained.
Exactly. So the third man on the porch, John Scroggins, he was the one who knew Karla and introduced her to his buddies Paul and John, who lived on the porch, was brought into the station to talk about John Prantty and Karla. So Scroggins told detectives that when he introduced his two friends to Karla, John Prantty seemed to be excited about Karla and then kept directing the conversation back to her when it went elsewhere. Later that evening, John Prantty drives Scroggins back to his house, and Prantty continues talking about Karla. And so Scroggins thought it was a little odd, like, dude, get over it. Like, she's a pretty girl, get over it, kind of thing. But he found it particularly odd that when Karla and Mark were entertaining friends and having a social gathering and eating pizza and beer, Prantty was annoyed and upset that he couldn't join them. He was irritated and felt it was rude that they weren't invited. And so Scroggins thought it was odd. Kind of dismissed
you just met
it.
the woman.
Yeah. And he dismissed it, but he just thought, it stood out in his mind as odd. So news of the exhumation also brought forward additional witnesses with information on John Prantty. And some of the witnesses told detectives that he talked about the crime, Karla's murder, and provided details in their conversations that detectives realized should not have been known. They were never released to the public, and specifically, it was that Karla's head was submerged in water and her hands were tied behind her back. So now John Prantty was at the top of their list of suspects, and they now have this bite mark. So with the new bite mark technology at the time, detectives decided that this might be their best avenue. So they took casts of Prantty's teeth and Paul Main's teeth, and they sent samples up to a nationally recognized expert in New York. Okay, so Kath, this expert, his name was Lowell Levine, assisted in preparing bite mark evidence that assisted in Ted Bundy's conviction in 3 of his Florida murders. Anyway, so when the results came back with respect to Prantty and Paul Main, they had a hit. This expert said the bite mark was a match for John Prantty.
So, Kath, according to court records, the detectives reached out to Prantty's dentist to get additional records of his teeth, x-rays, whatnot. And the dentist actually said that Prantty's teeth were so unique in their spacing, and it didn't mention if it was a lot of spacing or too little spacing, but the dentist said that he probably saw 7,000 or so patients a year, and less than 1% of his patients actually had teeth that were similar to Prantty's. So it was a very small percentage, obviously, that mimicked whatever this spacing issue was.
So just 3 weeks after State's Attorney Weber reopened the investigation, 32-year-old John Prantty was arrested and charged with the murder of Karla Brown. Other than the bite mark evidence, the case was based pretty much on circumstantial evidence, but he was convicted 1 year later. And although the prosecution requested the death sentence, the judge opted for a sentence of 75 years in prison. Outside the courtroom after the trial, Karla's sister Donna said the family felt that Karla's life was a lot more important than 75 years of Prantty's. But, she said, we feel like it was justice and we can accept that.
So as you can imagine, over the years, John Prantty filed appeal after appeal after appeal on this sentence and raised all of the litany of issues you would expect. Ineffective assistance of counsel, improper use of blood evidence. And of course, if he's convicted in 1983, by the time, the 90s and 2000s roll around, there's now DNA testing. Some of his appeals were asking for them to test some of the samples from the crime scene using DNA technology. And every time it was denied, 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 denied. However, in 2019, John Prantty was actually released on parole after serving just 36 years in prison. This is less than half of his original sentence. Surprisingly, John Prantty continued to appeal his conviction, requesting a finding of factual innocence based on the use of bite mark evidence to convict him. And as we know, because we've had cases before where they've used bite marks, because scientific studies that have been done since then have discredited them. Back when it was first used, and even State's Attorney Weber had said, bite mark technology is so important and so factual that it's just the same as having a fingerprint.
Right. That's what people used to say, and it's absolutely not.
Exactly. And so that's what John Prantty was saying. I'm factually innocent because you used bite mark technology. Prantty's filed several petitions wanting to be proclaimed factually innocent, but judges who have looked at these cases, both in 2020 and 21, agreed that, okay, so let's throw the bite mark evidence out. There's still enough evidence to convict you. And in fact, if you go back to the records from when the jury first convicted him, they said, yeah, we know there was bite mark evidence, but we really didn't pay attention to that because there was so much more evidence that was compelling enough that we found him guilty. But interestingly, Kathy, the Innocence Project and the Exoneration Project have taken up this post-conviction cause, which is still pending. So thank you for listening.
Bye.
We hope you're all having a great holiday season. Kathy's cookie party is coming up. None of us have been invited, by the way. There was a discussion about that last night.
I got to get the text out.
Yeah, I actually gave a date for you, so I hope it's right.
Oh, did you say for December 19th?
I did.
Okay, good.
But nobody will go unless they receive an invite.
That's true. I got to get them out.
No, that's what they said.
Oh, no, I believe you.
Yeah, there was a birthday dinner last night, and I was the only one who knew the cookie party date, and that was only because of my sister.
Yeah, I feel like I can telepathically communicate this to people.
And yet she's wrong.
Right. So I just got to get that done. It's on my list of things to do.
Everyone's offended and think they were left off this year. So we're thinking about boycotting and starting a new one.
That'd be so funny.
So everybody come to my house for the cookie party. Try to keep your stress down. Try to keep your fun level up. Drink Prosecco when you need to.
There you go.